Hello everyone, I'm Bonita. Welcome back to the channel. Today I have my work cut out for me. I'm going to be working up this huge bowl of peppers that I bought on clearance for 50 to 75 cents a pepper. And to be a good steward of these peppers that I was able to find on sale, I'm going to make sure that they don't waste. So I'm going to visit with you while I'm working these up today, and I hope you enjoy this video. Hi everyone, I'm Bonita from rural Kansas, and I am early retired. I retired early at almost 58 years old in October of 2023. I am now 60 years old. I am riding it out until Social Security kicks in, and I love frugal living. I share tips and tricks on this channel, and it has afforded me the opportunity and choices to have the freedom that I wanted at an earlier age. I hope you enjoy this video. And of course, I normally dry my seeds and then save them so I can replant them, but they're going in my compost bucket because I have so many pepper seeds. Then I put this out in my garden, and if they happen to come up volunteer from my compost, then I just don't plant that many extra that year. So sometimes I can get lucky and not have to plant because my compost will have them come up on their own. But that's one way that I use absolutely every single bit of the pepper. Today, I want to talk a little bit about simple living. And I also want to talk about stewardship. I think that is a word that has been lost along the way. Some of us still use it occasionally, but it basically means that we're going to take care of anything that we've been given, anything we've acquired, any blessings that we have that are material, kind of like these peppers. Finding these peppers on sale was definitely a blessing for me because mine are still growing on the vine. I have 7 of them growing right now, but they're very small. So we need some more peppers. So these are going to get chopped up and get put in the freezer so that I have them to fall back on. Whenever I can find a good deal like this and we are running low and we have freezer space, I pick things like this up. But stewardship is about more than just finding food and not letting our food waste. It can be about taking care of anything that we have, whether it's our car, our home, our yard, any of the things that we've been given, so that extends the life of those items. And where did this whole idea come from? A lot of us are very familiar with the Amish, but I come from a long line of Quakers on my mother's side. And if you're not familiar with Quakers, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the way that I was raised and some of the things that were very old-fashioned in my childhood. And a lot of those come from the rich history that was on my mother's side. My mother's side had the Quakers in it. In fact, if William Penn had not written the letters that he wrote that were published for people to see, that said there was land in the New World for people to come, my ancestors would not have been here on my mother's side, because that's how we got here, was through William Penn's published letters inviting us for religious freedom and to come to the New World. In one of the last videos, my youngest daughter brought me some homemade sourdough bread. This would be an example of being a good steward of the things that I was given. I made some homemade sourdough pizza for myself with some pizza sauce, some pepper and onions, some pepperoni and mozzarella cheese that I had already, popped it in the toaster oven, and it was absolutely delicious. Another day I added some cream cheese onto the toasted sourdough, and it was delicious. Who needs a bagel? So I have a Ziploc bag that I had my peppers frozen in that's empty. I'm just going to reuse this bag, and let's talk about simple living and stewardship. The Quakers were actually founded before the Amish started from the Society of Friends religion in 1650, and this originated in England. The Amish started in 1693 in Switzerland. They were focused on things that really mattered: religion, the people around us, the natural world. They thrived through simple living, which is what I want to talk about today. They avoided excess. They dressed simply. They didn't gamble. They avoided alcohol. And they had a common set of goals called testimonies. And these were called spices. The S stood for simplicity, the P for peace, the I for integrity, the C for community, the E for equality, and the S for stewardship, which is what we are really focusing on today. There was no set of beliefs other than these as a foundation for daily living. They rejected traditional clergy and formal rituals. They believed every person had an inner light and an internal relationship with God. Instead of strict rules, they listened to their inner voice of conscience to act with truth and love in a busy world. And when I grew up, I went to a one-room church. We didn't have a bathroom, we didn't have AC, and we didn't have a minister of any type. We were undenominational, and we had a lady that would form our little flyer with the songs we would sing and the readings from the Bible that we would recite together. We would break up into Sunday school, and that is how I went to church my entire childhood. We only had an outhouse, and honestly, I just waited until I got home. I've shared with you that my parents were from the Depression era, born in 1929 and 1931. And I can see a lot of my upbringing through some of these Quaker traits that I have been telling you about. For one thing, I wasn't allowed to get my ears pierced. I had to wait until I grew up and moved away from home to get my ears pierced on my own. Mom said if God wanted your ears to be pierced, he would have made them that way. I also wasn't allowed to cut my hair. Dad said girls were to have long hair. So all through high school, I had long hair. At some point, I did cut my bangs on my own, and he didn't say anything about that I remember, but I still had long hair. And then I grew up always going to church on Sunday, no matter what. You had to be on your deathbed to not go to church on Sunday. In fact, when we took those little camper vacations where my dad made the homemade camper, we always had to be somewhere Sunday morning for Mom and the rest of us to go to church. Dad waited in the vehicle. It was never discussed why he waited in the vehicle, but he never stopped us from going to church. And as I grew up, I knew my dad believed in God, but I think what kept him from going was wearing those darn waist pants, as he would call them. He wore overalls all of the time. He hated waist pants that had a belt. He thought they were too binding. And I wouldn't be surprised if that isn't the reason that he sat in the truck. But he always made sure that we went to church on Sunday, no matter where we were. And we had to wear dresses. Mom insisted on it. We wouldn't even think of wearing pants. Today, there's a lot of churches that are come as you are, wear casual clothing, but that belief was instilled in me as a young child. And if I go to church today, I still feel I have to dress in a dress or I have to dress up. I could not bring myself to go in jeans, even though I know a lot of people are like, come as you are. That's the most important. But this is a picture of one of the churches that we stopped at as I was growing up. This one was in St. Louis, Missouri. Mom didn't care what religion it was since we were raised undenominational, but the important thing was that we always had to stop and attend. So how would the spices concept look like today if we're talking about stewardship and simple living? Simplicity, cutting out the extra physical and digital matter to make space for what really does matter in your life. Peace, working to resolve conflicts and live with love. and a calm atmosphere. Integrity, being honest in your words and actions every single day. Community, supporting and caring for neighbors and friends. And equality, believing each person is valuable and important because everyone has an inner light of the divine. God's wisdom exists in every single person. And also protecting nature, wildlife, clean water, and public lands. So many of these things can still fit into simple living today, as you can tell. In fact, they fit very well along with a lot of our philosophy in stewardship and simple living. So ask yourself honest questions regularly to check if your actions match your values rather than judging others. The Quakers believed that all men and women were equal in God's eyes and had a personal relationship with God and their conscience. That's why they didn't believe in having clergy. Some religions believed in only going through clergy to talk to God, but the Quakers believed that each person had their own personal relationship. So helping groups, sharing duties, helping them grow more independently or strong, those are all aspects of living that spice life. Managing your money well, your property, or a company so it doesn't waste or fail. Those would be great examples of stewardship today. So, no matter whether you are religious or not, a lot of these principles that fall into simple living and stewardship are so important even today when we look at being self sufficient, self sustainable, relying less on grocery stores, being able to stockpile and have a pantry, being able to live within our means. All of these things fall into that stewardship and simple living umbrella. And that's what I found this so interesting to see, where a lot of these bases came for the foundation that my parents had during the Depression era when they were raised. That's why they were able to make do or do without. That's why they were able to reuse, repurpose, repair things. All of these things fell into that self sustainable lifestyle of stewardship. So, share with me something you've done this week that is either simple living or being a good steward of the things that you have.